Hello, everyone. My name is Silvia Binguzzi. Welcome. I am the designer and communication manager of Gregory Alicard Museum of Art. Just allow me a quick moment for a little announcement. You probably noticed that you've been muted. And just please keep it this way so that during the presentation we don't hear any sound in the back. But please feel welcome to use our chat. I'll try to keep a close eye on it and gather all the questions for our final Q&A. This meeting is being recorded and you're welcome to keep your camera on or off, but I just want you to know that. So let me turn it to Lynn and start the program.
Thanks, Sylvia. Thank you, Ben. And thank you all for joining us for this evening's program. I'm Lynn Boland. I'm the museum's director and chief curator. We're very excited to be presenting both an interview and a studio tour with internationally renowned photographer Binh Danh. This program is presented in conjunction with the first of our new virtual exhibition series, C.A.R.S. Online. The C.A.R.S. Online exhibition series features past participants in the museum's long-running Critic and Artist Residency Series, which was founded in 1997 to bring prominent artists, critics, and curators to the Colorado State University campus for public lectures, classroom visits, and exhibitions. The new online 3D exhibitions bring together the artist's own work and works from the museum's collection, shedding new light on familiar objects and drawing out themes and artistic sources in the artist curator's own work. We are dearly grateful to CSU's Lilla B. Morgan Memorial Endowment for partial support of the series, along with support from Colorado Creative Industries and the Fund Endowment at CSU. Don's virtual exhibition includes 46 of his photographs, presenting a range of themes and techniques across his prodigious body of work, from early chlorophyll prints, a process he developed, to found media works, digital prints, and daguerreotypes he has made over the last decade. Subjects include national parks, gardens, eclipse, internment camps, addressing issues including immigration, identity, historical and social constructs, to name a few. Binh Danh attended San Jose State University for his BFA and earned his MFA at Stanford. His work is in the permanent collections of the National Gallery of Art, the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art, the DeYoung Museum, the Philadelphia Museum of Art, the Center for Creative Photography, the George Eastman Museum, and many others. He received the 2010 Eureka Fellowship from the Fleischhacker Foundation, and in 2012, he was a featured artist at the 18th Biennial of Sydney in Australia. He is represented by Haynes Gallery in San Francisco and Lisa Setti Gallery in Phoenix, Arizona. He lives and works in San Jose, California, and teaches photography at San Jose State University. Now, Ben holds a special place at the Gregory Alicard Museum of Art. One of his chlorophyll prints was the first work of art to enter the museum's collection, accession number 2008.1, and he was the first Critic and Artist Residency Series visitor to speak in the University Center for the Arts in 2008. We couldn't be more excited to have him back as the first artist curator for a virtual exhibition series. Ben, thank you so much. I'm going to turn it over to you now.
Well, thank you, Lynn. Thank you so much for all you've done for this exhibit. I also want to thank Linnea Frickman, who introduced me to the community of Fort Collins. Of course, Susanna Hale and Sylvia for working on the text of making this all happen. It's really been enjoyable just going through the collection and looking at the work. And I was not even familiar with the Gregory Alicard Museum collection. And I was a little hesitant a little bit, as most artists are, giving a project like this, the commitment. But once I started looking through it, I was just blown away. And I said, this could work. I see some stuff I want to do here. So I think what we want to do first is to do a studio tour, kind of a behind the scene of my working space. And we actually did that on video, so then it works out better. So why don't we launch the video right now. Okay, so what you're looking at right now, it's kind of like a showroom. It's basically a showroom, and it's going to give you a overall panoramic view of it. The thing about daguerreotype is that they don't reproduce well in printed forms or on screen. And this was one way for us to kind of show you the uniqueness of the daguerreotype plate, the highly reflected surface that you get from looking at it. And then also the really razor sharp detail that comes with the process. And Lynn, feel free to jump in any time here. I'm just kind of panning the camera around, showing folks some of the pieces I have out. For example, this is Shoshone Fall out there in Idaho. A photograph that's a place that's made famous by Timothy O'Sullivan's visit to Shoshone Falls during the 1860 expedition. This is Yellowstone Fall, Lower Yellowstone Fall. It was really hard to get this photograph here because I had to wake up really early in the morning to catch the light, but also stand on a stairway that is basically in the afternoon or in the, at some point gets really crowded and it shakes. And so I wanted to be there by myself, and because of the long exposures required to record the image. That's an early daguerreotype of San Francisco Museum of Modern Art before the renovation. This one here is a Joshua tree in California, Joshua Tree National Park. I also collect 19th century daguerreotypes. I have a few in my collections, and I use it to study the technical quality and try to, do my best when I make my own daguerreotype. That one that you're looking at right now, that large one, that's actually one of my first daguerreotype. It was made in Lexington. This is made in Lexington, Virginia, when I was out there on an artist residency. It's of Stonewall Jackson Cemetery. A couple other 19th century daguerreotype. As you can see, most of the 19th century daguerreotypes are portraits, which was what's popular as a means of income for photographer in the 1850s and 60s. And later, if you have questions about the process or anything about them, I'm happy to answer. And then back to some of my work, I try to include some daguerreotypes that are in the show so you can actually see them here. That's Yosemite, Lower Yosemite Fall there. And as you can see, I'm moving the camera around so you can see the reflection that happens. And you can also, of course, see yourself in the image too, as you can see me holding the camera there. This one here, it's a couple I encounter at Cathedral Beach in Yosemite. This is another Yosemite image here. And if you look at this one here, there's a film crew right there at the lower right-hand corner, and it's always kind of really magical when things like that happen. Usually people disappear because it's about a 1 to 2 minute exposure. This is Zabriskie Point here in Death Valley. Again, another image that is made famous by Ansel Adams photography. This one here is in the show too. This is at Grand Canyon. Now this one is hard to see, but there's a lot of colors in the plate. There's a lot of green and pink that appears, very iridescent. And it's again just the beauty of this process that it's not very, no other photographic process could really repeat what the daguerreotype could present. This one here is Nevada City, actually in California, of a cannabis farm. I did a project about the gold rush town of Nevada City, something California and Colorado share. And again, you could see the, this is actually, I wanted to show you this one again, because this is another example of the color that you could see in the process itself. Again, just kind of really pink seed color of cliff rock here in San Francisco, and then beautiful kind of overblown blue skies, and then razor sharp details. Let's see what else I have here to show you. Hey there, Brian Taylor. Brian Taylor is one of my mentor when I was in undergrad at San Jose State. This is also in the show here. This is Lafayette, California, a hillside that's covered with crosses. And actually, Brian Taylor drove across this one day, and I just saw this hillside, and and then Brian was telling me about it, and I just was making notes that I got to return back to this place and photograph it. And I forgot what year that was, Brian, but I then started in 2006, started photographing the hillside of Lafayette. So these crosses kind of represent the dead's American casualty in the Middle East since the beginning of the Afghanistan and Iraq war. And you can see that cross, there's a in memory of. This is a petroglyphs, newspaper rock in Utah. This is also in the virtual exhibit. Again, this was really hard to photograph because it looks, the color of the rocks and the petroglyph kind of carving was very similar, but with the process itself, I could actually, the way I synthesized my plate, I could increase or decrease the contrast to get this beautiful, amazing kind of, just, no words could really express the details and the drawings of these just magical petroglyphs on just on a carving on a wall it's quite humongous too, if you ever get a chance to head out there to check it out. Let's see what else other daguerreotypes. Oh, and now I'm gonna just kind of show you my studio. So this is kind of my working space. A lot of work is actually put into making the daguerreotype plates, presentation and things like that. So I'm very fortunate, and I live in Gilroy now, California, and to have a studio space here. I have a laser cutter, which I use to cut my mats, and then some fume hoods, apparatus for developing daguerreotypes. And then, let me see here. Also over here is kind of where I do a lot of my polishing. With the daguerreotype, you have to polish copper plates and plate it with silver. And I think in the next video clip here, it's gonna show me plating a copper plate with silver. So in the 19th century, plates were called clad plates. They would take a piece of copper and a piece of silver, and they will roll it on together. It wasn't until later that electrical plating was invented by just, again, using electricity and putting a polished sheet of copper into electrical bath, and then a bath of electrolytes, and have a silver kind of migrate right onto the copper plate. So it takes about an hour to plate one sheet, and then I polish it off, and then you have a mirror finish plate to start basically photographing. So I think that's the end of the video there, and I think now we're gonna launch into a PDF slideshow. But Lynn, do you have any thoughts and questions? Yeah.
I do. I'd love to. So, as an emerging artist, you really made your mark with the development of the chlorophyll print process, and your body of work now. You're so involved in the daguerreotype. I'm curious about how that shift took place, whether it was kind of a direct move, and kind of what inspired you to pick up these 19th century techniques that obviously you knew about, but hadn't done before. So I'm curious about what led you to that.
Well, at least with the daguerreotype process, it was again just trying to the beauty of it, and I really wanted to kind of crack the code of like how do you make a daguerreotype. Even in today, it's still kind of quite a mysterious process. We just don't. Now, again, it's explained very simply when you read about it, but there's so much behind it, and I think that was one of the challenge. I wanted to see if I could master this process, but also just the concept of it, the beauty of the process, how it could the trying to find out other meanings, how the process could inform the content of the work, and even through studying the daguerreotype, I mean, I'm still discovering more new things about it, how it even changed the way I think about my work today. So again, it's just called following that pursuit of creativity and the mystery that kind of comes with it. So yeah, that's and also, I mean, we live in this digital era. It's not like I'm obviously against any of it. I love it all too, because that's what we have now, the ability to do this, the ability to also use 19th century process, but also to use Instagram to make work with. And that to me is kind of really magical too, that you have so much possibility as an artist today to pick and choose, and no one's gonna kind of criticize you like they did in the 20th century, where, if you were doing color photography in the early days, it wasn't considered art, or when you were not doing black and white photography, it wasn't, the other way around. So yeah, I mean, I think that's the joy of it. It's just the endless possibility with the photographic medium, and ways it could inform the content of your work.
Well, and one thing that struck me so much, your work is always plays such a important role on history, or is so kind of self-aware of the history behind the images that you're making, and it's playing such a role in them. I'm wondering, the kind of history of the medium there, is that, does that give you kind of additional avenues to explore? Does it become, does that kind of burden of photographic history, stymie things? What's the relationship, I guess?
So the work I do does relate to history too. There's a history in it, and maybe we could even launch to the slideshow and we could talk about that. So just to kind of pick up, I mean, when you're working as a photographer, you think about the history of photography. I wanted just to show you, this is Carlton Walken's photographic van, basically, in the 19th century. And as Walken went out to Yosemite with thousands and thousands of pounds of equipment and glass plate, 18 by 22 inch glass plate, just to photograph it. It's just to achieve this, to witness this beauty and to bring this beauty back to his community. And of course, it launched the National Park Service with Abraham Lincoln signing, laws to protect Yosemite Valley. So photography was able to kind of achieve quite, I mean, really achieve a lot of stuff when it's just being produced. And I wanted to show you the continuation of my van here. This is kind of what I use when I head out there into the forest, the landscape. And so in this van is kind of, you know, my mini setup. Most of what I do in the landscape is all dry. I mean, there's no wet chemistry involved at all. I do half of it in the land and then half it back in my studio, fixing the plate. But here you see two boxes. I don't know if you see my mouse cursor there, but this is an iodine box, and the silver and the iodine will, well, the iodine evaporates and touch the silver plate, and it becomes silver iodine, and it becomes light sensitive. And then in the 19th century, they also figure out that if you use bromide, it will increase the sensitivity of the plate to cut down the exposure time. So instead of a 1 hour exposure, you will get it down to, you know, under a minute or so. And then in this box right here, this cabinet is actually my film hood, where I have a apparatus that develops the plate over warm mercury, and it requires, you know, an exhaust fan, so I'm not breathing any toxic chemistry or toxic film. So it's hot in there. It could get up to, you know, 90 degrees on some days, and but I got used to it. And then of course I march out, or I hike out. This is me and Giddy's out there, Gettysburg, photographing the park there, and I'm using a 12 by 20 inch camera, which is something I'm gearing up to do later on, is to do 12 by 20 inch daguerreotypes. So I always enjoyed this quote, and talking about history. You know, I use this quote in my seminar class because it's about critique, and it's a photograph of Frederick Douglass, and he said, "Pictures, like songs, should be left to make their own ways in the world. All they can reasonably ask of us is that we place them on the wall in the best light, and for the rest, allow them to speak for themselves." And this Frederick Douglass lectures on pictures, and who knew that Frederick Douglass was one of the first photo theorists, you know? So yeah, that's what pictures do. And you know, I came to this country with not a lot of family pictures. You know, this is a picture of my mother when she was in her teen, and this picture was made so then to advertise that she was a single lady in my parents' neighborhood, and that's how my parents met, through a photograph. And then, you know, as we spent some time in a refugee camp before coming to the U.S. So my parents are Cambodian, and my mother is Vietnamese, and I'm the youngest of 4 kids. And then here's two more family photographs. One was taken in Vietnam, the black and white one, and then there's one taken in San Jose, California. And it's spooky for me how similar they are to each other. But let's move forward to the exhibit here. So we made slides of the exhibit. It was the best way to kind of just give you a preview of the virtual show. Although I imagine we could have done like a gallery walkthrough, but that would probably be we would technically, it might not work well too. So anyway, it was enjoyable just to go through the collection and just see these objects of art, like the C.A.R.S. Walker. You know, when I saw the C.A.R.S. Walker, and C.A.R.S. Walker's work for me was so important, because when I was a freshman in college, it was one of the first contemporary exhibit I visited to write a paper about. And Walker's work is controversial, dealing with a very dark subject matter of slavery in that time period of American history. And it mentioned it basically, when I walk away from the exhibit, it was like, you can make work with these difficult subject matter, and it's okay to do so. And I always liked this C.A.R.S. Walker because of her silhouette drawings. And for me, the silhouette, you know, is kind of a precursor to photography, because in, you know, the 17th century and 18th century, there were these silhouette drawings that were made by projecting a candlelight, and one could trace their shadow onto the wall, and it was a way to just kind of make a profile of yourself. So this mechanism of just drawing with light, you know, so it makes me think about, oops, let me make sure. There we go. It makes me think about, you know, this is in the show of this eclipse I took of the 2017, the Great American Eclipse. And I call it, you know, La Silhouette of the Moon, kind of homaging that silhouette era. And because we don't think of women, the eclipse, the moon is still there. The moon is still there. It's a silhouette of it. And I want people to really kind of focus on that when they look at this piece here. Lynn, do you want to jump in and maybe even talk a little bit about some of these other objects here?
You know, well, I certainly can. You know, the C.A.R.S. Walker is a work that really comes out as often as we possibly can. We track the light exposure on this work religiously, because it, you know, it's definitely one that our audiences respond to more strongly than any other. That was something that we kind of experienced anecdotally, and since sharing it on social media, I think the Instagram likes show it as you know, show just how important an image it is for our collection. You know, C.A.R.S. Walker for me as well is an artist who you know, really showed what was possible, you know, in terms of challenging, you know, existing ideas, existing forms of art. You know, one of the things that I've loved is that in your exhibition, we end up with these juxtapositions like the Russell Crowe that, you know, I haven't seen before, and, you know, probably wouldn't have thought of. You know, the way in which you suss out kind of the primary, you know, reading of the Walker, the interpretation that, you know, is most likely to appear on the label, but these other threads as well, and takes us into other directions. So the Russell Crowe is one that I actually, I'm going into my 4th year as museum director, and this is one that has not been on physical view during my time. So, you know, I've really gotten to know it better. It's a difficult one to show. It's a difficult object to look at in the vault. So I've gotten to know it actually much better through your eyes and through your exhibition.
And this is a drawing of the night sky, right, on a sphere. Yeah, Russell Crowe's work have really influenced me too. When I learned about it, about the cosmos and the drawing. These are chlorophyll prints of Searching for the Cosmos series, one of my early series here in 2005. So we have others kind of juxtaposition in the gallery virtual gallery show too, that kind of has similar kind of content to them. There's a lot of you know, allusion towards destructions and desert, kind of dry land, hell in a way, like Dante's view here in Death Valley. Kind of what we're even living through right now with the fires in California. The dry weather condition and the lightning that sparked those fires, and you know, a lot of global climate change or global warming, and these things are just getting, these weather patterns are just getting more and more powerful. You know, even the recent hurricane that just passed throughout the Houston area in the Gulf of Mexico. You know, this piece here, I was, you know, again fascinated. Of course, you know, there's this decapitated Buddha head, you know, from Thailand, 16th century. And, you know, I have this daguerreotype of a Buddha Phnom Penh, you know, with the body still there, and kind of want to just make comparison to that. And then, of course, when I came upon this Andy Warhol too, I was just taken by it because it reminds me what I presented in my talk when I was at, you know, Fort Collins 2008. You know, I kind of just started, just really basically completed this body of work, you know, called Swamp Thing, in the 1 Week's Dead Life magazine. So this is a collage of the Swamp Thing, which is mimic the comic book itself, and that relationship between you know, this grass-like creature that came out of the swamp, and the idea of, you know, camouflage and soldiers who die in Vietnam, and their memories kind of exist in that landscape. This is an image of a portrait from the 1 Week's Dead Life magazine. And this is the Lafayette here, Lafayette Hillside in California, in memory of. And of course, I was also taken by this Roman Bearden, this garden. And, you know, a lot of gardens appear in my picture too, through the chlorophyll printing process, but also just photographing people in their gardens. When I did this project in Louisiana, New Orleans, I photographed Vietnamese community, Vietnamese people in their gardens. And after Katrina, there's this neighborhood in New Orleans, East New Orleans, named Versailles, and it was kind of used as a dumping ground for all the debris. So the community there really came together and started, oh, there's only have one picture there, started to protest and organize to really make sure that their community doesn't be used as a dumping ground. And they credit because a lot of their gardens are there, you know, it's gonna devastate the land. And, you know, this is a haunting twist here. This is, you know, Khmer, during the Khmer Rouge regime, Cambodian had to march off to the farm fields and work. And a lot of people die during this time period. So this is another body of work that has a couple different series in it. For example, ancestral altars. I wanted to make altars to these portraits that I encounter at the Tulsa Genocide Museum, as well as focus on some of the other elements that I came across when I was traveling in Cambodia. Like this, not this one here, but this motif of snakes, which kind of appears throughout the exhibit too. For example, here, Rahu carved in stone from in the Eclipse of Angkor series, where a snake swallow the sun, causing the eclipse and like an omen among the Angkor Empire. Also, I was also interested in distance, in minerals and rocks. And I think in this photograph here, I was really having a hard time making pictures of the mountains and Death Valleys. But then I just looked to the ground and I realized it's just right there in front of me. So I started pointing my cameras onto the floor and thinking about the rocks and minerals of Death Valley. And then we came across some of these in the collection here, because this is here a Larry Bell. And Lynn, do you wanna talk about this piece a little bit? This is also made from minerals, is that right?
It is. You know, so this is a process Larry Bell began, well, you know, first using vacuum chambers to coat things, eventually coating paper, you know, making works on paper in the vacuum chamber, using a process that, you know, affixes these mineral, you know, ground minerals directly kind of to the paper. As an aside, his Bell, who is now in Taos, he was a light and space artist, part of the kind of California minimalist movement in the late 60s, 70s, coming out of Ferris Gallery. But now in Taos, but his most recent vacuum chamber was made at CSU. According to a reliable source. I did not get to meet Mr. Bell when he was having that made. But, you know, it does, you know, when you were describing the process of coating the copper daguerreotype plate in silver, you know, it had me thinking exactly, you know, obviously a vacuum chamber, not electrolyte, but, you know, a similar sort of process, I felt like.
And then a couple other pieces in the collection, like this Mario Rise, where it's also made from minerals or dirt on a canvas. Is that what I'm?
Yeah, the kind of the accretion of this sediment in the Mancos River. So a series of works, you know, portraits of rivers made from the, you know, made from the substance in it themselves.
Yeah, and I was also really taken just by the composition. When I first came across this, for me, it looked more like an early photographic experimentation, like a fox tablet. It looked some sort of kind of like a salt print with a landscape scene in it, and I was very surprised to learn more about it. We mentioned the Larry Bell shadow box here, and then moving forward, you know, focusing on you know, the pre-America, you know, era indigenous people of this land. This is the members' pottery out in the Southwest, I guess. This is also about the same time that you see these petroglyphs drawings that started, you know, on these stone walls here. So this is newspaper rock. And then I was also taken by this, this is a print right there. Is that right, Len? Yeah, it's a print.
Color wood block.
Oh, color wood block, yeah. And you know, this is 1929. But I was also thinking about, you know, my series that focused on Manzanar. And this is Manzanar was a internment camp for Japanese internment camp during that, you know, period of American history. Today is a historical site, national historical site. And then I came across, you know, Patrick Nakatani photographs of an internment camp out there in Colorado. So I included some of that in the exhibit too. And then we have Phnom Penh. This is a part where a lot of mass graves were uncovered from the Khmer Rouge regime. And then just getting towards the end of the exhibit, kind of showing some of my new work. This one here is just a view I took on Bernal Heights in San Francisco, and you see the houses and you see a really empty freeway. And it's kind of like, for me, signified the shelter in place, the quarantine. It also helped that the exposure was long too, so no car was really recorded. But there was really, again, you know, not much car out there because it's the time we live in. And of course, I started this new series called On Photography, taking a quote by the Susan Sontag's book On Photography, focusing on these books and keepsake of that I've been collecting. And this one here is a daguerreotype of a book by Deborah Willis called Reflection in Black, a history of Black photographer, 1840 to the present. And in this example here, you could see that the daguerreotype records everything in this mirror image. And then you could take it from here.
You know, the last two images in the exhibition, the Bernal Heights image and the Reflections in Black, are, you know, I think especially powerful because we're still in the moment that you're, you know, capturing so magnificently. I wonder, especially if you could, you know, comment briefly about, you know, kind of really the meaning behind the last work, the Reflections in Black, and you know, I know that there's a lot going on there, like in all of the images, there are multiple layers. But if you could comment some on, you know, how, you know, in your statement for the text accompanying the work, you note that, you know, photography is implicated in this racist history, but also offers a way to break out of that and move beyond that. And I found that very, very uplifting. Wonder if you could say a few words about about photography's role in, you know, issues of, you know, racism, racial bias.
Yeah, it's a piece I'm obviously still thinking a lot about, and what's so special for me with the book is that it presented a history that's not really taught in school about, you know, the canyon is majority white, and coming from a modern art kind of perspective, even still today. And so when I came across Deborah Willis' book, I you know, I had this book for a while, and it was kind of the perfect moment to do this piece. You know, I had this idea, you know, a couple of years ago, and the idea, because the book also had the word reflection in it, and when you see yourself in the daguerreotype, you become part of Black stories. You become part of the, you know, histories of Black folks in this country. So I think, you know, photography, it's obviously very powerful, and it has the ability to you know, to share stories. You know, I mean, we all make pictures. You know, we all make pictures, family pictures, and things like that, and how they could help us basically learn about each other. And I thought that book, you know, was just a wonderful way to fill in the gap of photo history.
Trevor Wilson, well, I think that you can read it in the chat, but I'm gonna just repeat it for everybody. I was wondering if you could possibly briefly explain the chlorophyll printing process. Is there a specific plant or leaf that you prefer as a material?
Sure, yeah. So the process is very similar to another 19th century process called the Anthotype, invented by Sir John Herschel, using food color pigment like berries and things like that, and coated onto a sheet of paper, and then exposed in the sun by bleaching out the chlorophyll pigment. So I kind of use this very similar techniques. And so you can actually find, you know, instruction on how to do this online. I can also point you to several articles I wrote about it. But basically, it's just taking a leaf and sandwiching a transparency on top of that in a contact printing frame and exposing it to sunlight. So when I was working on this series, I prefer to use, you know, the leaf that was grown in my mother's garden, because I didn't have to grow it myself. But it was also, you know, the tropical leaves was something I was focusing on to kind of mimic the landscape of Vietnam in some of those series about the Vietnam War. And it works, you know, works really well with tropical leaves. And I did another project in Virginia using the vegetation out there, focusing on the Civil War. So I used leaves from witness trees, which are trees that were around during the war, trees that were in these battlefields, to print portraits of Union and Confederate soldiers onto the leaf itself. So again, the origin of the leaf is has meaning to me too when I consider the content of the series.
I have a quick question. Hi, Ben. I was just wondering if, Ben, you could talk about the interplay between your work in the show and then the work that's not by you in the show, as far as the dialogue that it creates.
The interplay. Well, it's something that hopefully people could pick up when they navigate the show. You know, when they see the relationship, and when I sent the list of work to Lynn, I kind of already order it to the way it makes sense, the way I see it makes sense when to play off my work. And you know what Lynn did was just kind of follow the list, which is great. And he did all the legwork of putting the show together, so I didn't have to worry with much of it about that. But when I visited the show for the first time with Lynn, I was really kind of blown away myself, because it felt like a kind of like a mid-career retrospect, you know, and it was a way to just really see all my work come together with also these objects throughout history that I love to look at too. And you know, hopefully all that kind of just jive once, you know, the viewer navigate the online virtual gallery.
Yeah, you know, just to add to that, I have to say one of the things that just excited me so much in seeing it come together was, you know, not only did you use works from the museum collection as a kind of framing device for different themes, you know, and you know, different kind of imagery, but you really you pull out, as I was saying with the Kara Walker, you pull out not just the primary themes from these works, or say the Romare Bearden and the garden theme, but they're kind of subtexts at play there. So while the Walker may help introduce, you know, silhouettes, it's also introducing challenging subject matter at the same time. And one of the things that I just found so sophisticated was the way in which, you know, you're using kind of single objects to do kind of lots of work and really sussing out so much of what is in there through the arrangement, through the adjacencies, through kind of the rhythm of the exhibition of your work and these other works. So, you know, one of the things that we hoped in launching this series is that, you know, we could have fresh perspectives on objects that, you know, those of us here at CSU often know pretty well. And it did that in amazing ways that I could never have anticipated. So in short, it did everything and then some that we had hoped. And for a curator who's especially worked with a number of these works in other contexts, it's been really powerful to see them kind of deployed in this way.
Great, thank you.
We have another question. You might speak about the new series on photography. It's a part of an homage, revealing what might be cherished and to explore further the complexity of history, all of which I sense in Deborah Willis' reflection piece. And of course, which you referenced. And this is a question by Adrian Effendi.
Yeah, there's a box I have somewhere where I've been collecting all these objects, just throwing it in there and say, this is going to be the On Photography series. And, you know, I just, again, the title for me, the Susan Sontag book, you know, meditation on photography, focusing on photography. You know, I love photography. That's what I do. I live and breathe photography. You know, one could say photography brought my parents together. Photography has a lot of meaning to me just growing up and dealing with imageries of the Vietnam War and trying to understand that legacy. And then, you know, it's a really magical medium. And I think a lot of us don't think about it that way, or at least a lot of the general public don't think about the way they use photography, especially in social media. They don't think about, you know, clicking it, and I mean, they click it, they post it, and they walk away, and sometimes it comes back and harm them, like Jerry Falwell and things like that. But it's like, it's a really magical, really powerful medium So the other thing that, I wanted to focus on the series is also I kind of feel like a lot of my students, or maybe it's the way I'm presenting it in class, is the theory of photography is kind of like disintegrating a little bit. And I kind of want to just pay homage to all these elements that how photography affects my life. For example, I have like, that little emission clip that they give you when you walk into the George Eastman Museum, and it's going to be one piece that I'm going to make a daguerreotype of. So all these little kind of homage that, focus. So hopefully I'll get the series together someday, but it's something that I've been thinking about, collecting items, and then it might be a summer or two, just kind of setting up the studio and then just photographing them.
Great question. Well, if there are any other questions, feel free to put them in the chat. I did have one last one. Since we can't get you here for class visits and studio critiques, I thought I'd ask you what advice you might give to a young photographer, working on a BFA that maybe you wish you had known or has served you particularly well.
Yes, I always hate this question. That's okay, Len. It's not something that is easy, and you hear a lot of people answering it, and like keep going, pushing, and the secret is I really actually don't know. I mean, that's not a great answer. I think the one thing is that you gotta love it. You gotta love it when it's not working out, and you gotta love it. Of course, you love it when it is working out. And there were times when I was in the field and this process wasn't working out, the daguerreotype process. I mean, I'll be driving home crying, just thinking about all the hours and money spent. But then when I look at those 19th century daguerreotype, I say it's possible. They did it back then. I'm able to do it in the 21st century. So it's you have to see it also in the long run. You really have to kind of commit your life to a practice of what I tell my students is creative living. It's not just a studio practice, it's not within the studio, but it's a whole life experience. I think about it like people who join the monkhood or stuff. It is a kind of a life experience. You honor what you love. If it's Jesus Christ or whatever it is, you do that. And to me, my photography is my Jesus Christ. And yeah, I just kind of continue to let it flow through me and make the work.
So again, thank you to all of you, and last thanks to the Lilla B. Morgan Memorial Endowment, who is footing the bill for this program.
Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us.
Keep on going. The world needs you.